not entirely sure how much I feel excited about this, but I want to get the third Crusade, the second part of the second scenario available in the old S&T magazine game, out of the way, while I still kind of remember the rules. I presented a general introduction, but with a focus towards the first Crusade. The third Crusade uses the same rules in general. There are some differences, though. First of all, it's only a two-player game. It has no guile, it has no income. You can't buy off attrition, which means the Crusader forces especially are in some significant trouble. But to tell you the truth, the Muslim, although they have an easier attrition table, they have to deal with problems here too. The fact that it's two-player is a big deal, because, damned, I don't know what the victory conditions are. How about that? They're not important anyway, right? They've got to be here somewhere. Okay, so it's just a series of cities which give victory points. Jerusalem, of course, is worth a lot to the Crusaders and a decent amount to the Muslims. Crac de Chevaliers is a big point for the Muslim. Acre is a big point for the Muslim. But basically, you want to capture what the other guy's got. In order to do that, you have to pretty much wipe out his forces, because if he has land troops available, he can harass your sieges as you're trying to undertake them. Now, this is the big crusade. This is, Richard the Lionhearted, Philip of France, and Saladin. And, well, Barbarossa, but he's dead now. I ought to mention this. Every time I was playing the first Crusade, and I'd go out swimming in the middle of it, I would immediately start thinking about Barbarossa and his death and everything. And just kind of, I don't know. This is the kind of thing that playing a game gets me thinking along. Some people think that I hate games, I hate all games, but a lot of what I get out of games is these kind of random connections that have very little to do with the game mechanisms, very little to do with the strategy, and not really all that much to do with the actual historical line. It's just this weird connection in my brain, the images I get. And those come more easily when I'm alone and not with the camera, actually. For example, if I'm out swimming or looking at the game, thinking about it, and drumming. You can go see my drumming mod if you want to understand, rant, if you want to understand that at all. And the person with the most victory conditions wins. However, if the Crusaders have less than 5-point margin and they don't have Jerusalem, it's going to be a draw. And that's all we have. Situation, I think there are some special rules here. First of all, there's neutrals. Bohemond III of Antioch, up here. Bohemond IV of Tripoli. King Leo II of Armenia. Isaac Comnenus. Anyone else? So they can't be moved by the Crusader player unless they're attacked. Once they're attacked, they can be moved normally. The two Bohemonds will both react if either one is attacked. Isaac Comnenus is neutral completely. He's not beholden to anyone, but he'll defend in place if attacked. Unoccupied neutral ports are friendly to everyone. Neutrals only have a zone of influence in the area they're in. Crusaders and Saracens can move freely in the hex outside. Now, what I'm looking for here, okay, there's special rules on the assassination, which aren't going to use guile. They're going to use the combat rating here. And the Crusader player has a penalty for that. What I do not see, and this kind of surprises me, is any rules restricting Richard, Philip, Guy, and Conrad from cooperating. this whole crusade kind of happens in part because of a civil war sort of happening within the Kingdom of Jerusalem. And I'm a little disturbed that I do not see anything here about that. I'm assuming it's baked into the random events somehow, and we'll worry about it there. And there is still a random events table, and for this scenario, we're definitely going to play with the Muslim reinforcements coming in, assuming they're part of this. Let's make sure they are. I think they are. These are the rules I kind of lost last time. No, those are special rules for the First Crusade. And if anything, I thought they may have been leftovers to make the Third Crusade work better, but they're not. The Third Crusade, the only reinforcements we have, I guess, are here. Richard shows up with a fleet, and I've got his forces over here. Basically on this edge of the map, and then the Muslims get a series of these. This is going to end in, as I flip through trying to figure out what's going on with this, it's going to end in August 2, 1192. So we're going to be about a year and a half of play. And let's see. Something else I haven't explained is these castles. They're not part of the First Crusade. They work kind of like cities, but they have an intrinsic strength point attached within them, which you have to take out in order to capture it using the siege mechanisms. They also, some of them have fairly high multipliers for the forces inside, which I assume isn't that intrinsic strength. But actually it doesn't say otherwise. This has a ×5 multiplier to any strength that's inside of it. They can only hold 25 strength points though, but this has a ×10. That means it would take 250 strength points to siege a whole force there and force them to roll on the siege attrition table. And otherwise they're kind of in supply, which is cool, I guess. Lines of communication are different in this scenario too, I would assume. Let's see what we got here. Okay, Third Crusade, the Saracens trace to Damascus, Cairo, Jerusalem, or Aleppo, if they own them, I assume. And for the Crusaders, it's any friendly port or Philomelium, way up there in the corner, if they wish, right? Or is that the First Crusade? Hold on. Yeah, that's both. No, only in the First Crusade can I use that one. But otherwise, it's any friendly port. Okay, and remember the desert restrictions for those. The Muslims can trace through like 3 consecutive desert locations. The Christians only through 2. All right, I guess we'll get started and we'll start writing orders for these guys. Explain a little bit about the initial situation up here. We've got Conrad and Balian here. Balian's famous. Philip of France has a big pile of troops here. Guy, the king of Jerusalem, is here sieging a Muslim force. He's got like 50 strength points of 18 points. Now that's in a size 3 city, so I think he's got barely enough to roll on the 3-to-1 table. But that's... No. He's got barely enough to siege him. He doesn't have enough to roll on the 3-to-1 table because 18 times 3 is like 54. Guy has like 55 strength points. Then we have Saladin kicking around here with about 40 strength points. And Saladin's a very good leader, so he's got a good chance of being able to wax Guy. Now, this is all important. If you look, Richard is a level 5 leader. That's as good as it gets, right? Saladin's a rank 3 military leader, which is almost as good as it gets for the Muslims. You may ask, who's better than him? Well, in the First Crusade, there were some people who outranked him. You have to remember, Saladin, although he's a military genius and even more a political one, he was consistently defeated by Richards, or at least held off. So you can't really give him the same credit that you give to some of the Muslim leaders in the First Crusade, I guess. All right, so that's our starting situation. I got to write my orders. Okay, well, interesting situation. So here's what we have. The expected orders. Saladin has orders to march in and relieve. And of course the troops inside are coming out. The fleet over in Egypt is going to sail up to Jaffa and combine with the other fleet, maybe be able to defeat the Crusader fleet, who knows. The important thing here is the Egyptians have one use for their fleet, to wreck the Crusader fleet. The Crusaders really do need their fleet, I think, in order to get Richard in safely. Unless, they slip him in way up here and march him all the way down. But they want to maintain a powerful fleet in that area. Philip and Conrad, but not Balian, are going to march down and support Guy. And Philip is a king, so he can command the forces. He's a higher ranked, he's a better military leader, so he has a chance against Saladin here. Guy is doing a 1/2 siege. He's allowed to do this because he has enough strength points to maintain the siege. He just doesn't have enough force to do an assault, so he's going to go on the attrition table. Okay, that's all great. But for random events, first, the Crusaders got a assassination event, and of course chose to try to kill Saladin. They need a 6 to do so. Because they have a 2-point penalty to their leadership, to the die roll, and they have to beat his leadership, so 3 + 2 is 5, they need a 6. They failed. But that could significantly affect the game if you kill Saladin on turn 1. And they will keep trying. There's good reasons. The assassins did make attempts on Saladin, so it's kind of cool that that's happening. But for Saladin's event, he got local revolt in Hama. Saladin must send a strength of 10 army strength points to Hama immediately, or it has to spend a full game turn. Well, I only have 5 there. My orders are already written. What can I do? I don't know. I think it's going to allow me to shift and make additional orders, essentially. I didn't move these other forces up, which I probably should have. That's my one defect to my plan. But the thing is, I want to get this strike in quickly. I don't want to delay and wait. I want to make the attack fast. So, like with the others, and look at the First Crusade's first video for, well, the hell, let's do it again. Alright, so we'll do some of the movement here. So I'm going to immediately allow Al-Mafdal, or whatever his name is, Al-Mujadid, to move forward. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can get in here. Oh no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can't make it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can make it through the desert. He's got to get there immediately. Alternatively, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He can't make it there. So this is his only option. Well, we'll send it. That's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 attrition for 5 strength points. 13 attrition. That means I'm going to lose a strength point. I'm not going to make it. This is the fun of this system. Now, in the First Crusade, of course, I'm going to leave a strength point behind in Homs. I don't want to lose my city. But that means I have to send this guy from Aleppo as well. And I might as well. He's not doing any harm there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can't make it. But he's going to have to try, I guess. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm going to lose a dude there. And I'll be outside. Now, these forces have to gather here at Hama and then stay a full turn, I guess. Again, this would all be fixed to some extent if the game didn't have the orders before the random events. You have to write your orders before the random events take place. All right, let's take care of some of the other actions. Saladin's just marching through here, 2, 3. And he's going to compare to 40 strength points. He's not going to take any losses. And we'll get Philip and Conrad. Now, they're kind of coming from different hexes, but I kind of cheat this. And we'll move Philip's fleet there, too. Because if we don't move that, we're going to be weaker. Philip's going to move in here with Guy. He has, I don't know how many strength points it's actually written down. I could, of course, calculate it from the boxes of the guys he has with him. But I don't want to do that if I can avoid it, because that's more trouble. So Philip has 23 strength points, and he's only moving 1 action, but we've got Conrad with him who has an additional 5, so that's 28. I don't think that affects too much. So 2 movement points maximum. Everybody's going to make it there. And we're going to have one big battle. Meanwhile, the fleets slide up here. And, you know, this is, it's not like there was a lot of option here, right? Yet. Although the Muslims can try to delay, but I don't think it's in their best interest. So now we have a battle. I don't know how many strength points I have in each force. I ought to probably count that. So Saladin has 40. We have 58 here. I think I only have one calculator in this room. And what did we say? 28 for Philip, plus I believe it's 55 for Guy. Yeah, 28 and 55 is somewhere around 83. I should have my other calculator here. Ah, there it is. I've gotten out of the habit of doing math, you know, simple arithmetic. Okay, so now we roll dice for the combat. I'm going to use the colored die for the Crusaders, and Philip will be commanding it. Now, an event, and indeed it is an event, the political arguments causes Montferrat and Guy to not work together for a turn. All right, let's see what we get here. So, Saladin rolls a 2. That's an O, which is, I believe, the orderly withdrawal. And Philip does an impetuous charge. Okay, that can't be good. Well, that's actually a fair value. We were hoping for one of the higher results, whatever E and F are, encircle and flank from Saladin, but instead we end up with a 0. So what do we have? 83 to 58. Who's attacking? Saladin's attacking because Guy was present in the hex already. Saladin's got the smaller force. What are his odds? 29 more, 70, 87. So it's going to be 1 to 1.5 because half of this added to it is larger than the Crusader force. So it's 1 to 1.5. Saladin's attacking. We'll see what happens. He gets a 4. he gets hit with a 20 and a retreat, and that's going to be a disruption as well, and only 15% to the Crusaders. So these are going to be our losses. And I got to come back, but Saladin's going to take 12, and the Crusaders take 13, but Saladin's been rebuffed from the location. And now we take the siege attrition table on this space. And remember, not next turn, but the turn after, Guy will start taking additional attrition for being in the space, I believe, without moving. And in the after effect of that battle, the Crusaders captured Taki, a pretty decent military commander, I guess. We can hold on to him with some hope of exchanging, but there's some risk to that. You got to put him in a castle or a city or something under garrison. It doesn't seem worth it. If it's to our advantage to make a trade, why are the Saracens going to make that trade? If it's not to our advantage to make the trade, then we don't want to make the trade. For example, if we were trading this for a dude with a strength point, probably. This is a two-player game. I see no reason to observe any kind of exchange of prisoners in it. I see no reason to take the risk of holding on to a prisoner for that, so I'm going to execute him. And at the same time, after rolling for every single Crusader counter, and this is such an annoying facet of this game, especially this particular scenario, every single damn one of them that is on the field. Everything in these boxes and my two kings. Remember, the Crusaders can take 2 losses. Well, they took 1 very late in the process anyhow. Almeric of Jerusalem, so his 2 strength points are now gone. And, well, we go on to the next turn. And Richard's going to show up. Notice I forgot to roll the siege attritions. No, there was no chance of an actual assault given the situation. There may be this turn. I have to look. With Saladin unable to intervene, but ended up getting one of the low values for the Crusaders, which means this is no longer a 1-point hex, it's now a 2-point hex, so they're going to suffer worse attrition if they want to stick around. The city also lost a strength point. They're down to 11 strength points, which means they're at 33. I'm not going to have the 3-1, the 99 that I need to siege him. So all I have to maintain is more than 11 strength points here. And my other force, I'll probably divide my forces and send some of it to go try to take something, maybe Jerusalem, but probably some of these other cities away from the Muslims in order to provide myself with ports or whatever near Jerusalem. I really do have to take Saladin out, though. That's the problem. You've got to take the mobile force out. Now, the game is about winning the castles and the cities, but if you can't defeat the enemy force, it's not going to work. This reminds me of something, but the impetuous charge by Philip. One of the few times I played this opposed, one of the few times I played it at all, I may have actually played this opposed as much as solitaire, but one of the few times, with the written orders and everything, and the fact that I could actually get one person to play the Third Crusade with me quite often, not a single person, just I could often find one person for it, but I couldn't find 6 people willing to play the First Crusade. But one of my favorite times playing it was with my old friend, we'll call him Clueless Dave. He was, I think, playing Saladin, and I think I was playing the Crusaders, but I'm not sure. But it struck him so, he was so amused by the fact that not only did Philip Augustus do an impetuous charge, which is very unlike Philip Augustus, but it would be possible that he wouldn't have control of his troops. That would make sense, but he got killed in the impetuous charge, which is really hard to believe because Philip Augustus was a very careful leader, which is why I said it's unlikely to do an impetuous charge. But if one happened, he would not be out front. But, you know, stuff happens in a battle, but he just found that terribly amusing. And I was kind of hoping the same damn thing would happen here. You can see a lot of orders for this May 1st turn. No random events this time. I kind of cheated last time. I forgot that random events don't work as they do. I rolled 2 dice In the first Crusade, I rolled 2 dice on the chart. That's how I got the 2 events that I got. The random events are rare in this one. Basically, you need to roll a 1 in order to get a random event, and then it's a d6. Events are done. I'm not going to go back and redo them. There was some chance that they wouldn't happen, but I went and looked up some of the numbers to make sure a 14 was still no event, and I'm like, whoa, there aren't enough events. Okay, so the Crusaders have spread out all over the place. First of all, Richard is down here at Limassol. He couldn't make it anywhere. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's just short of the coast. So he has to land at Cyprus, which is historical, and then stage from there onto the board. I don't know how many strength points he has, but it probably isn't too many, because he's being carried on 2 ships. I'm guessing around 20 strength points there. Anything more than that would be illegal, but he could ferry things. You'll see the Egyptians are up there, and we'll take care of that battle in a moment. But yeah, guys here in Jaffa, Philip's moved down to here, and we've spread out grabbing Caesarea, switched people in Tyre. We've got Conrad now sieging Acre alone. Now, historically, the battle didn't start yet. Saladin didn't attack until after Richard showed up. I strongly believe that Saladin wants to launch that attack, because if he can win that initial battle, he can really kind of dominate once Richard gets into place. Likewise, this naval battle is important here. So I think we've got 10 Egyptian fleets, and it looks like the same number of Christian fleets, but one of the Christian fleets is a 1-point fleet. If you recall from earlier, naval battles are done on a differential table. So with the larger side getting the advantage, or being the attacker, so here the Egyptians are going to be attacking on the 1 column. They don't have any of the things that would shift it, which is greater odds. 2 to 1, for example, gives them a +1 on the die roll. So they roll a die. And, that's not so good for them. They're going to get a retreat and 10% losses. They have 20 guys. They're going to lose a fleet, basically. 2 points of shipping. And I believe they have to retreat. I'll figure out where. We've got Saladin running back to Damascus. These guys recuperate, trying to get Hama under control. And over here in Jerusalem, well, this is interesting. The True Cross is here, but it serves no purpose in this scenario. I'm going to pitch it, because it really shouldn't really... It doesn't have a morale effect or anything like that. It doesn't affect guile, obviously, and it's not got a victory point effect. So let's just get it out of there. I think it's just a typo in the scenario. It was supposedly still in Jerusalem at that point. Saladin had captured it at Hatton's, I believe. Anyway, I got to get these guys out, and that's not quite the end of the turn. I've still got the siege to take care of. Let's think of what we got. Conrad only has 19 strength points. He's facing more than he can siege. So we go on the siege attrition table again. Red for the Crusaders here. They're going to be on the 2 table. They're going to take 3 losses, while the city only takes 1. That's not a good combination. Yeah, Saladin recharges his batteries here, and we have some additional troops moving down from the south. And I've got another force here ready to play. Guy has successfully captured Jaffa. The Egyptians made another attack, and this was really dumb. They were at like the -7, essentially the damage that they took before, plus additional fleets that the English brought in to Acre. It's pretty much denuded the Egyptian fleet. Now the Crusaders can actually split their fleet and do 2 operations with it. They're also laying siege still to Acre here. They got a good roll on the attrition table, where they knocked the Saracens down to only 6 strength points. They took a couple of points of loss themselves, though. And Philip is positioning himself for a siege of Nablus. Basically, they're closing in to try to prepare themselves for the attack on Jerusalem. I'll probably try to take Ascalon at the same before I get there. Saladin's got to do something. He got kind of caught hard with that last battle, and that wasn't good at all. One thing I noticed I did that's a total screw up. I tried to keep. I thought the French were supporting Guy. It's the English that support Guy, and I forgot that. The French are supporting Conrad. And I've got the forces kind of set up so that the French have some of Guy's supporters near them, whereas... And Guy has a bunch of French with him, actually, over here. Philip, for some reason, has... This is not an English. This is a German dude. He's fine. He's okay with everyone. But then the English have Conrad with them. This is not the optimal situation because there are events that make it so that it's difficult for them to operate together. There's also an event that sends the French home, which is something I got to worry about. Anyway, that's the end of that turn. And for right now, it's looking pretty damn bad for the Saracens. I think this result came up in the First Crusade, except maybe an attempt to avoid it. But Richard's forces have been sitting here for a couple of turns. They don't get assessed with... There's a special penalty if you're sitting there for 2 consecutive turns. I thought it comes after 2 consecutive turns. It's on the second consecutive turn of sitting someplace. But it doesn't apply when you're besieging. When you're besieging, you just deal with the siege tables, which is what we've been doing. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out, a mistake I made there as I complete my plot. Philip manages to take Nablus. Guy has moved down to attack Ascalon. I don't know if he has the strength to handle that. Guy only has 18 strength points. There's going to be 10 there. So he can do a siege and start to starve it out. But that's the kind of situation we have here where Richard lost off. This has not gone up. I just put a 2 there to remind me it's a level 2 because I don't want to get too confused there. But Richard lost 3 strength points, and the city only lost 1. Now, 1 strength point from the city is 3 of Richard's, but remember, Richard's got to get 3 to 1 odds on that. Right now, he's got some 30 strength points facing 15. He does not quite have it. He can't boost it up with the blockade until he reaches the 3 to 1. So he just doesn't have it covered well enough to provide a full siege. Al-Zahir has gone into place. He's going to start sieging the Crac de Chevaliers. Saladin got some reinforcements, and now he has 49 strength points after attrition. He's marched up here rather quickly. Philip is in Nablus, though. Saladin wanted to kind of hit him. He's got kind of this position where he's got 2 leaders he could swing into play. That's not going to work. Could he force march out of Jerusalem and maybe hit Richard with extra force? That would be an impressive move. I'm not sure that's what's going to happen. But anyway, we are seeing the effect of the attrition. Oops, I forgot to move Guy. He was supposed to go down to Ascalon and join the other Guy. And that should add 1 strength point to Guy there, as Guy joins Guy. Philip also was unable to actually assault the city, so he took attrition losses, and he took fairly heavy losses too, I believe another 3 strength points. So we're seeing the Crusader army kind of melting away as it's trying to grab stuff quickly while Saladin's away. Risky move, but you know, you can't just let Saladin gather up these forces if he's not there to provide a threat. So taking Acre, taking Nablus, taking Jaffa, trying to take Ascalon, these things are important to me, and I've got to try to do it. The Egyptian fleet ran away, which now means most of the Crusader fleet can sail down and try to deal with Ascalon and give a bonus there if it gets around that far. Okay, additional Saracen forces come into play here from Cairo, marching up to Pelusium to use the navy to move them up. Through the events phase, after the plots have been done, we had the Philip goes home. Luckily the navy stays, but the king and several of his main retainers have just left. That strips the Crusader forces significantly. Now, kind of cleverly, maybe, presciently, the Crusaders were worried about Saladin laying siege to Nablus, so I moved Richard, Guy, everything over into Nablus here. I took a couple of attrition losses for that, but now I've got the force gathered, and that's important. Of course, I've left the siege off Acre. There isn't a lot of strength there, so I'm not as worried about it. I'd love to take Acre. I need to, whatever. But it's more important to me right now to take Saladin out than fritter my troops away besieging Acre, which was beginning to get unpleasant. Saladin, on the other hand, thought that the French would go to Ramla. I'm not sure quite why. To protect it or something. So actually, well, part of the reason is it was one of the few places I could get to. Nablus and Ramla were the two places I could get to with my whole army. I could actually siege and take Ramla. But more importantly, Ramla was the way to get around Nablus, right? Slipping around to get up to Acre through Caesarea or whatever. But Nablus was too big a force to siege. And I think that's why I sent my forces there, also taking some attrition. The Craktic Chevaliers has fallen, and the Muslims are simply taking control of it. I can put a little marker there, but I can remember. They starved it out, and I'll be able to send their troops downward there. But now we've got kind of this interesting standoff between Richard and James, who's now in command at Nablus, and Saladin, just kind of facing each other off. And it becomes this weird sort of game of dancing or whatever, because it's not clear where you want to go with anybody. The Crusaders have to be careful. They have to protect their coastline. They can't let, in particular, Caesarea fall. So that becomes the linchpin of the territory. Saladin could send someone to grab Arsuf and Jaffa. He could send someone to grab the troops at Ascalon. He could ship some more troops in from Egypt. This is where he has to attack, though, to make his way up to Acre. And if he does this, he has more or less cut off the Crusaders. They can trace this. Yeah, that's Syrian as well. So they can't really trace anywhere in terms of movement. I'm not sure. They may be able to go by this because that's not a force there, so I don't think it projects a radius around it. But I'm just looking at cutting the line of communication to cause the Crusaders to start taking the really high-level attrition no matter what. And the Crusaders cannot allow that to happen. So they may have to, it may just be that Caesarea is almost the destiny point where this battle has to occur. Or on the road to it, but yeah, it doesn't work terribly well either. I mean, the Crusaders could place themselves, say, at Jaffa, and that positions them better for an attack on Jerusalem. I don't know. This was kind of a tough choice here through the July turn. Nothing actually happened, basically, in terms of an engagement. But Richard was sitting here, Saladin down at Ramla, and like I said, there's this sort of potential for a dance happening. I don't think it is happening here because of the importance of Caesarea. But, you know, Richard could have marched down on Jerusalem. As long as he has Nablus, he has a supply route up to Caesarea. But if Caesarea falls, he's screwed. A quick siege of Jerusalem might have been nice, sending some small forces there while trying to use Richard to defend elsewhere. Because that'll prevent, if Saladin's defeated, he can fall back. He has a huge army, and he can fall back with like 40 strength points in Jerusalem. And that's going to be almost impossible to take out. That's the one reason that I wish I could have committed the forces. However, Richard doesn't want to split his forces at this point. Had he maybe been able to catch part of Saladin's forces, and he considered this risk, and I rolled a die for where he'd want to go, and ended up coming to the let's go to Caesarea. But you can see Saladin's converging on Richard here. He's got this guy up at Acre who can move in. He's moved some forces, new reinforcements from Damascus into play. He's moved to Arsuf. The reinforcements from Egypt are here in Jaffa. And he sent Cepheden down to Ascalon to gather forces. So he's got quite a powerful force here. His own force is some 50-something strength points. It's larger than Richard's force. He's going to end up with better odds than Richard has. But Richard is one hell of a commander. And that's really the problem here. But Richard can't afford to split his forces as well. Up in the north, Al-Zahir is coming down to try and maybe help out a little bit. We want to avoid hitting Bohemond, but grabbing Tyre would be cool if, you know, if the battle's already underway and I can't get Al-Zahir there in time. Tyre is a good target. Al-Majahid is heading here with the intention of, say, grabbing Tortosa. He doesn't have the force to grab El-Markab. That would have been my alternative strategy, to move and grab that. I don't know what the values of the victory points are. You really should probably keep track of things like that when you're playing a game. Right? You know, what are the goals? But the general goals feel right. Al-Markab does not even appear to have any value. In fact, I don't think Tortosa does either. Oh yeah, it does. There. Tortosa's worth 2. But for some, is Al-Markab's the one that replaces something? No, and I don't think Beaufort's worth much. Beaufort's worth something. Is Al-Markab mine? It's under Crusader control. I don't know. Yeah, I don't see any value for that, so that may be considered part of Antioch and thus not really worth taking. Almost everything else in the game is, though, including Antioch. Yeah, that may just be an accidental omission in the game. But anyhow, I'm not heading there. What I am doing is trying to use Al-Markab to grab something of potential value, which is Tortosa, which is worth a little bit. Leaving a strength point behind to do that seems worthwhile. Now, I could pull a strength point out of someplace like Homs. The Crusaders aren't up there. They aren't playing in that world. That world's not even worth anything. I just don't like doing that for whatever reason. But remember, there are some events that require me to move troops back up there. For whatever that matters. And I'm beginning to think that those events don't allow me to rewrite my orders. They're a long-standing issue that I have to go deal with as quickly as possible instead. All right. Unlike the First Crusade, where opportunities abounded, players had different goals, maybe want to hit different things, can take detours around the enemy and grab something of value. Here it's very, very difficult to find something of that nature. Which means the game kind of devolves into this silly dance. And right now I'm trying to figure out what the hell Richard wants to do. I'm just looking at the situation. So he can sit here and let Saladin come to him with all his forces when he chooses, which would probably be this turn. Or I can go somewhere else. I can run up and grab Acre, which is more valuable than Caesarea in general. Something I kind of want. It'd be nice to grab it. Jerusalem, not so much, because there I'm risking my supply. But then once I'm at Acre, now what? Do I move back down towards Caesarea and relieve that siege? Probably. So I think that's what I'm going to do, but it's just this sort of silliness of the whole situation as to, you know, I'm going to run up here while all of these converge on me and try to take me down. On the other hand, if I sit here, I get to defend, which is, I think, what I'm going to do. But what if Saladin does nothing? Man, That's a problem. Of course, then had I moved, I would have gotten the drop on him. Saladin doesn't particularly want to delay this. If he could pick the location where I was going to be and fight a battle with the defensive advantage, that would be great. But he's not going to get that, I don't think. He's also not going to keep me here with all his force. He's not going to keep me here forever. So maybe waiting and letting Saladin approach is a better move. Fortunately, unlike the First Crusade, they don't give strengths to each of the alliances here added up. That would be useful because there is this tendency to gather everything from one grouping into a hex. So now I've got to count all the boxes assigned to the different people who are actually here. That's going to be an annoyance. I am going to do it initially and then subtract. I am going to count just the boxes on here and then subtract from the total that I have the couple of people who aren't in battle. Andrew is going to be joined in this battle though. So when I tried to count up Richard's forces, I came up with a very different number than what I had written down recorded. Came up with 66. I don't know if that would have changed significantly. I think I probably paid the correct amount of attrition with him. Saladin has some 92 strength points, I think. Not quite enough to get the 1.5 to 1. And now we go to our leadership. We'll use the colored die again for the Christians. And we see, and Saladin did not do well. He's going to be defending in place, whereas Richard does the coordinated charge. And now we combine C to D. That's 5 levels in the Crusaders' favor. Now Saladin's attacking, so 1, 2, 3, 4. We're on the worst table in the game, and Saladin's going to get his ass handed to him here. He takes 30% losses in a retreat and a disruption, whereas Richard only takes 5% losses of that 66 strength. Okay, well, this defeat means that this was not the game, but it may be close to it. Basically, Saladin's been so destroyed by this. He took, let me see what I said, 30% losses of 92 was 28 hits on his army. His army is now about the same size as Richard's. What does that really mean? I still need to keep a pretty big force to handle him out of the way, but Saladin's going to have to bring this big 60-something point army and split it up over places where he's safe. Now, Acre is one that he's sort of safe in, but that's rather close to where Richard is. He could end up pinned in there if he sends a force there. So I've got some difficult decisions there. Could I slip through to Jerusalem? Well, maybe, but that's not going to be easy. I can't enter the Nablus hex. I retreated all to here, but I'm cut off from making the trip to Jerusalem, which means I think the south here in Jerusalem are all going to fall. And then I'm going to have to win a battle against Richard, who will probably just be playing to maintain this Kingdom of Jerusalem area. He'd like to pick up Acre too, but Jerusalem's the big prize here. All right. Well, I guess that's the end of this turn. And I guess I'm at a good place to load up in terms of total video.